Hey, Martin, welcome to the show.
Hi, Richie. Thanks for having me.
I mean, I should say welcome back, really. Obviously, you've been a guest several times before for our annual data and AI trends episodes, but here's your first time hosting. So, how does it feel to be in the hot seat?
Very privileged, I must say. I feel a little bit like you. It's a way more comfortable position than needing to want to be given predictions. It's always like I'm scared for a whole year to see like how they play out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe we've got a chance to review some of the things you were talking about in January as well today.
Yes. Well, maybe. I'm not sure how well I'm doing.
All right, great. So, for our first story today, we're going to be talking about a report from McKinsey's Quantum Blackout. So, that's the AI arm of McKinsey. So, they got a report called Seizing the Agentic AI Advantage. A very cool title for how do you actually make use of AI agents or agentic AI in business.
Hmm.
And they make a case that there's been a lot of investment in generative AI, but not many returns so far. And the big idea is that most of the use cases at the moment, it's been very much around what they call horizontal use cases. So these are things that are suitable for a lot of the business or a wide swath of your department. So these are things like chatbots, co-pilots, and they've scaled very well, but they've only given like a small amount of value to each department. And what McKinsey suggests is that what you really want are vertical use cases. This is something that's is going to be a large amount of benefit for just one department or just one team, or maybe just a few individuals in the organization. So I think they're talking things about like things specifically for HR. So you've got like HR tooling for like better hiring, or you've got things for like legal for contract review, all this kind of stuff. But those have not been widely adopted, and they're saying lots of organizational challenges like a lack of skills, the technology's maybe not quite ready yet, and just the challenge of process re-engineering is very time consuming. And then they suggest maybe AI agents are going to solve all these problems because they can automate stuff and it's going to be brilliant. Now, I'm not sure whether this is just magical thinking. It's like it's the cool new toy that McKinsey want to talk about, or whether this is going to be a real thing. So, Martin, do you have an opinion on this? Are AI agents going to save us all and make loads of money for businesses?
Well, first of all, like I think some businesses are making lots of money out of this. The ones who are selling the AI tools. So given all the use cases you mentioned, I think there's like an AI startup scale up a little bit for everything. And I recently read some data about like it's one of the uh, fastest growing area of startups in terms like revenue that they bring in. It's also a little bit of a different world. I think we came out of a world where lots of money was spent on building product and not that much focus on the business side. It seems that people have learned their lessons, and actually quite a lot of these AI startups are making a decent amount of money. So the AI cash is going somewhere. Like somewhere is making is money. But I think what you really mean is like, okay, the ones who are buying all these toys, uh, are they seeing the gains? So I think it's a little bit underwhelming at the moment. But I think it's part of just of the hype curve. I think the benefit will still come. Now, recently had with some colleagues some discussions around this, and then there are like different takes as well. So one of the things that one of my colleagues raised was the solo paradox or the productivity paradox. Like, I needed to look it up as well, but basically what it pointed out was that, well, there was like a slowdown in productivity growth in the US between the 70s and the 80s, despite like, okay, like big promises because information technology computers were coming out and that was gonna like boost productivity like we've never seen before. And so despite lots of companies spending a lot of money on computers and technology and expecting much more and better results and people getting faster at doing their jobs, there's like this argument that like, okay, actually it's not what we see if you look at productivity growth. And it was a little bit of a long intro to like, okay, well, I I think the productivity growth will come from AI and that it will start solving actual problems rather than like toy problems. But at the same time, like having that productivity paradox in mind, like, okay, am I 100% confident? Like, no, not like that. That's also like not the case. But I that it goes slower than people anticipate. think is a little bit normal, I would say.
Yeah, so it does seem fairly intuitive that you have to invest in stuff first, and then you reap all the rewards, you get the money, the increased productivity growth, the extra revenue generation, whatever, like, later on. I guess it's just a question of how patient you wanna be about, like, waiting for that extra cash to come in.
Yes, and like and also like not every investment like turns out the way that you hope it's to be in. So I think there's uh also still a lot of like uncertainty around like, okay, what are the investments that make sense? What are the investments that don't make sense? Like AI seems to have product market fit in the marketing field. It seems to have product market fit in the software engineering field. If you think about Cursor and like Cursor, and how it's making like engineers more productive. I'm more active on the marketing sales side. If I see like, okay, how much more I can do, like so, there's like true product market fit, and maybe a little bit on the legal side. But then, okay, on the finance side, you see at least I haven't seen that much yet. So I think we're also trying to figure out like, okay, where does the most value sit? Where does the lowest annual value sit? And in that process, well, investments get lost while you try to figure that out.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that's fairly natural. Like, not every investment's gonna be a winner, but you need to figure out like what the sort of the good bets are gonna be. Now, there's one more thing I want to talk about in this report. So, it's perhaps the most controversial bit. The report is suggesting that the best use cases for agents are going to be just automating business processes. This is a great way of saving money. Is you take your existing business processes and then you use a bit of software, a bit of AI to just automate away the bits so humans don't have to do them. Now, a lot of this is really the AI is not that new or not that involved in it. It's just taking the sort of standard approach that's been around for sort of at least the last decade of just using software to automate business processes, and then maybe there's an LLM in there somewhere. But so there was some pushback from this. It was Ethan Mollick, so it was a renowned AI professor. He was saying that, well, this is really missing a trick because a lot of the latest models that come out this year, they're really good at reasoning. You can do things that are a lot more complex than just, summarizing bits of text or whatever. So there's a disagreement about what the best use of AI agents are. Do you want really simple agents, or do you want something fancier that's more akin to like a junior employee? I don't know whether you have an opinion on this.
So in the short term, I agree with the McKinsey report. In the long term, I agree with the Eaton Mollick rebuttal, but for a different reason. Uh, so um, so I think where McKinsey is right in its report is in the fact that if you do this type of change in a company, and I can only imagine like the larger the company, the more difficult it is. Like there's a certain like inertia, and because of that, like okay, you can come in and you can say like, hey, we're going to tackle like the biggest, most complex process or product that we have, and we're gonna make it full AI, and probably along the way, like you lose everyone, and your whole investment, all you're trying to do, like falls flat. So from that perspective, like starting simple, which is like my distillation of like okay, what they're saying, it makes sense like in a in a world where you move more and more towards um embedding AI in your organization. Um, so that's what I mean with a different reason. So my argument is okay, why I agree with the McKinsey paper is more from like okay, organizational change perspective rather than the arguments that they make, because I think in the arguments that they make and the way that Ethan Mollick tries to debunk them, like I'm actually on the side of Ethan Mollick, where okay, he points out like the reference models that are in the McKinsey report, they're outdated. They make certain arguments around costs, but like what we've been seeing the last 3 years is that like cost has been declining rapidly. They're like
Right.
hyper focused.
Mm.
McKinsey's hyper focused on efficiency, but like they're then focused on
Right.
efficiency from like yesterday's technology. And like when I read that, I was thinking about like there's this there's this famous quote by like Peter Drucker, like he's like his management consultancy, like I think maybe even like one of the founding members of management consultancy, like if there's a founding member team. But it's like, okay, there's nothing so useless as doing like things efficiently that should not be done at all. And like that part like reminded me a little bit about it. Like, why are we caring about the efficiency of like the models that are already like obsolete?
Right.
It's like it's irrelevant. So I think short term, the way that McKinsey is positioning it and approaching it, I think it makes sense, but not necessarily like, for the reasons that they say it makes sense, and there are more on the Mollick side. Like, does that resonate with you, or do you feel like no, you're
Uh,
totally off, Martin?
it does no. So I like the Peter Drucker quote, and actually, I was speaking to one of our customers the other week, and so this is someone at a bank, and they were saying they were really excited. They're like, "We've just been building all these agents to automate our fax workflows," and I'm like, I'm kind of conflicted about this because it's like, why are you still using faxes? Like, it's not been a sensible technology at any point in the century. And so it's obviously completely crazy. Like, it's just a technology fix over a really stupid process. But obviously, this is a smart person. If they had any power to not use faxes, they would have done that decades ago. Um,
Well,
so yeah,
but maybe going back to my productivity paradox, like it's a little bit of the little bit of point. Like they skipped out on the internet, and it still worked out fine for them because I assume they're still a big bank. Like a bank, it's hard to run, so like they have something figured out. So yeah, it goes back to that productivity paradox, and like okay, like what is what increases will we actually see, if any?
yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
I'm
it's
going to
solving a
be like
problem.
after this, like they're gonna call me an AI doomer, which I'm not. Uh, for the sake of the argument, taking the opposite side here.
Yeah. What is all this stupid AI? Why are we bothering? Why not get any productivity out of it? No, so I think that this argument it comes back to strategists versus operationalists. So if you are doing something where it's research, you're not quite sure what the answer is going to be. That's where you need like strong reasoning. You need like very flexible processes, and that's where these higher reasoning models come in, and where you really want the fancy agents to help you out. If you are focused on operations, you want really like more rigid processes that are streamlined and do the same thing over and over again at scale. And that's where you care about just having simple automated processes that are repeatable. So yeah, I think it just depends exactly like what you're doing. All right, so let's move on to the next story. Before Martin, you mentioned about like the people making money out of this seem to be like the AI startups and scale ups, and there's been some big purchases going on in this area. Do you want to tell us about them?
Yeah, sure. So, one of the things that obviously was like big news in the last week was Meta slash Facebook, for those who are still with the old name, or like Mark Zuckerberg, buying like Scale AI. Well, sorry, he didn't buy Scale AI. He took a stake of I believe 49% in Scale AI, and he basically paid 15 billion dollars for that, which is by any measure, a lot of money. Like okay, for the listeners who don't really know like what Scale AI does, basically they solve the data labeling problem. So in short, if you want to have like really powerful AI, you're gonna need like enormous amounts of like high quality labeled data. And creating high quality labeled data is something that's incredibly slow. It's very expensive, and what Scale AI did is basically build a factory that produces this type of like high quality labeled data. So if you're like Tesla, you send like thousands of hours of video to Scale AI. They go over it frame by frame and they say like, hey, this is a pedestrian and this is a tree and this is like a traffic light and so on and so on. Or like if you're like OpenAI, you have you are in need of like real people writing high quality questions and answers. You have a need for people that need to rate AI's responses, telling like, okay, is this a good answer? Is this a bad answer? And like all of that is basically done by Scale AI, which makes them enormously valuable because again, like you need this type of like high quality labeled data. Um, and then the question is like, okay, why is Meta Mark Zuckerberg doing this. Lots of theories out there. One is, well, okay, he feels that the llama models are behind, and if you look at the benchmarks, like that seems to be the case, and he feels the need to like do a catch up. And this type of like move allows him to do that because on the one hand, well, he kind of becomes exclusive owner of this high quality labeled data. Um, Both Google and I believe OpenAI, who were former customers of Scale AI, already said like, okay, like we're canceling our contracts. So okay, he now owns this probably very valuable data set and process himself. On top, he probably has now a little bit of insight in how Google and OpenAI were training their models. So like that's beneficial. Um, Secondly, like okay, there's the CEO of Scale AI is apparently like a very talented guy. The what he's built seems to be a good validation that he's a pretty smart cookie. And he's gonna lead up Meta's new superintelligence division. So the superintelligence division of Meta is basically okay. Mark Zuckerberg saying like, okay, we are falling behind. We need a new initiative. The next frontier is superintelligence. So I'm gonna put this super talented guy at the top of it. I'm paying $15 billion for being able to do that. And so now I have that. So okay, that's another theory. Like you needed talent, and it's some very expensive acqui-hire. The first theory was like, okay, yes, he needs high quality data. He has that now. Um, Another theory is like, well, maybe it's a competitive move. Like somebody described it as like, okay, he takes a chess piece off the board. Like now that OpenAI and Google don't no longer have access to it, like, okay, is that gonna hurt their own model training? And then the final one that, and I'll give it to you, Richie, for some comments. The final one I found interesting was, well, uh, somebody just said, well, there's actually like in Facebook terms, like it's not a lot of money. It's like a 1% of their like market value or something like that. So like it's a blip for them. So from a risk perspective, it's a fairly low risk bet to get back into the game. So yeah, like lots of interesting things happening there, like lots of gossip, intrigue. Like, okay, who's going to win this? Will this put them back into the game? But like definitely like a newsworthy story in AI world last week.
Yeah, so it's a good bit of sort of corporate gossip. I'd say, like the idea of just investing $15 billion in it being not very much, very, very foreign to me. But yeah, it's amazing the amount of money involved in the AI game at the moment. Actually, so I recently watched the movie Mountainhead. It's kind of like the Succession TV show, but set in Silicon Valley. So I learned a phrase. So to invest $1 billion, they use the phrase to bust a bee nut, which is it sounds kind of rude, but the idea of yeah, Mark Zuckerberg busting 15 peanuts on Scale AI is very interesting. All right, anyway, so yeah, you mentioned Scale AI. We actually had some guests from the Scale AI's competitor, Sama AI. So it was Wendy Gonzalez, the CEO, and Duncan Curtis, one of the senior vice presidents, just talking about this. It's absolutely fascinating, the idea that, yeah, data is still perhaps the most important thing in order to get great quality AI. So we talk about AI being the big thing. Mustn't forget about the data because that's what's powering everything. And just like in terms of trying to get better quality AI, I mean, you basically got a choice of four things. You've got better data that we mentioned, or you can invent new models, but that's slow and it takes time because you've got to do research. And then you can either add more compute power during training. But like the latest foundation models, they're costing like upwards of 10 million or like $100 million to create. So we're kind of reaching the limits of like how much you can spend to create new models. And then you can also add like inference compute, but that makes your models more expensive to run, and it makes them slower as well. So then, yeah, that's a terrible user experience. So it looks like better data really is like the big solution for getting better AI at the moment.
Yeah, better data and again, just a hypothesis, but like probably the talent that you have within the company is uh like plays a big role as well, and it always plays a big role. Like high quality people, and always make a difference. There was like this other interview with Sam Altman, where he basically said like, okay, Facebook has been trying to poach some of our most talented people, and they're offering them $100 million sign bonus. Which is when you hear the story is like, well, that sounds pretty crazy. But then, well, one of the narratives in this whole acquisition story we just went over is, well, he wanted to have a really good head of his super intelligence division. He identified Alexander Wang, the founder of Scale AI, as being that person, and he wrote a check of 15 billion to own not even half of the company. So like it's the data, but then apparently like okay, the people and probably the novelty of the ideas that they come up with like plays seems to be playing a big role as well. And maybe Mark is identifying one of the issues. Like I'd say Mark, I'm definitely not on the first name basis with him. Uh, it's uh, maybe another thing is like okay, maybe one of the key things he sees as why Llama is behind is because he does not have a talented enough team at the moment, and probably already has a very talented team. Maybe the difference is hard to grasp for us morals on this topic.
Yeah, maybe I mean, of course, because like, back in the day, Mark Zuckerberg, he became, like, the youngest ever, like, self-made billionaire. I think he was, like, 23, and then it was Alexander Wang from Scale AI who broke that record 'cause he became a billionaire when he was 21. So maybe
Okay,
that's part of the reason he wanted to hire him. Uh,
a little bit of envy.
yeah, yeah, something like that. Alright, so I think you had another story around, hiring or around buying things.
Yeah, so another rumor that's going around is that Apple is considering, or well, it's a rumor that they would like to purchase Perplexity, and like the number that's been circulating is $20 billion. I'm not sure, like okay, to what degree that's true. Um, but I think it speaks to the story of the fact that, well, Apple seems to be in a bit of a tough spot with its AI plans. I haven't met a lot of people that are happy with Apple Intelligence or the way that Siri is using AI. I think they made quite a lot of promises, none of them fulfilled. I think it's for the uh, first time in 10 years. Like, so I'm on a Google device. I use Android. So for 10 years, I needed to listen about like, okay, why having an iPhone is so much better, and why am I not switching to an iPhone, and so on and so on. And like now I actually have the better functionality. They're all locked into their little Apple ecosystem. Maybe I eventually will have the last laugh. But so yeah, but the point being, like, okay, so Apple seems to be in a little bit of a at the moment in the losing spot on everything that has to do with AI, and uh, I think rumors like this are I like I don't know where the origin is. It's like okay, the question is like okay, are they trying to fix it or not? And trying do they try to fix it internally? But then internally they have like lots of people switching job positions, switching roles, switching functions, and so on. So doesn't really look like like a stable environment. Like that said, like if you look back at OpenAI in the last 18 months, you could probably make the same argument there, and they kept shipping models. But like from the outside, like it looks all a little bit weird, and like are they gonna need to buy it in? And then something like Perplexity um, came around. Um, Now, yeah, I think I use Perplexity once in a while, but it's obviously also not the biggest model out there. And Apple has a lot of cash, and they have a lot of stock value. So you could even see them making like an even bigger acquisition if they really want to. But it seems like consensus is like, hey, they're gonna need to do something. Because everyone isn't happy with that part of their product. So are they gonna buy it in, or are they gonna develop it themselves? Well, and then maybe a final thing on this is um, th- there's like another angle to look at it,
Mhm.
and is that Google is paying them really a lot of money to have Google be the default search engine on your iPhone. I believe it's also like in the magnitude of $20 billion dollars a year. Um, if you start to integrate AI more and more, and you make that the central piece, well, you're losing on $20 million in. It's probably basically pure profit. Yeah, lots of hard and difficult problems. I think they're definitely like in the corner, where yeah, they're getting um, yeah, hit from all different sides. So it's going to be interesting to see like okay, how they get out of this, and if it will be with a big acquisition. There's actually, and then I'll stop and let you react, Richie. There's actually like this. I think the biggest acquisition Apple ever made was like Beats. Like, you know, like the Dr. Dre headphones, which is like from a totally different magnitudes. I believe it's like a billion something than what's being rumored today. So yeah, that's like a little bit like so. Apple, Perplexity, Richie, what do you think? Will they buy or will they build or
Yeah, I
will
mean,
they burn and go away?
uh, yeah, I think Apple disappearing completely. That's more of an outside chance, but certainly they really need to do something. And it's interesting, is it like Beats is the biggest thing Apple's ever bought? Like, that's crazy because that's a tiny company compared to Apple. When you compare it to something like Salesforce, where you know they bought Slack, they bought Tableau, and it's like constantly acquiring things and then trying to fit them into the business. So yeah, if Apple does buy something that big as Perplexity, or even bigger, then yeah, it doesn't have the reflexes to kind of fold new businesses into itself. So that's going to be a very interesting integration challenge.
Yeah, and I think to the point of scale AI and the point of talent, like maybe that's what Apple needs. Like, okay, they need some true AI talent inside of Apple, and okay, what is it that they can buy to bring that talent in? Like, scale AI is off the market now. Like, what else is out there? Um, to bring that in. I think Microsoft at some point bought one of the companies there to bring in some AI talent. So yeah, let's see what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, oh, so just on that note, there was the Google bought character.ai for it was a few $1 billion, and that was basically just to hire back one of their executives that had left the
Yeah,
company previously.
maybe that was one of the yeah, that's true because Character AI was founded by one of the people who wrote the original "Attention is all you need" paper, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, all these like hirings for hundred millions of dollars. I'm in the wrong game.
Well, you should write a paper. And
All right, cool. Let's move on to the next story. And I've got another report for you. This is the EU Generative AI Outlook report. So it's a report to sort of inspire policymakers in the EU just on like what should they do around generative AI. So the big theme is that generative AI ought to be considered a strategic asset for European countries, just in order to generate economic growth and increase employment, increase productivity, things like that. So there's a big worry in the report that the EU is lagging behind in compute capacity. So saying the total compute capacity of all these sort of GPU clusters, high performance computing clusters across Europe is less than the size of XAI's Colossus compute cluster. So the Colossus has got I think it's like 200,000 NVIDIA GPUs in it. So it's a pretty amazing technological feat. This is based in Memphis. Uh, but yeah, that's more than the whole EU combined. So the EU is lagging in AI infrastructure. But then beyond that, there is the focus of the report is that generative AI should be focused around small and medium enterprises. The focus is on small to medium enterprises because this constitutes 99% of all businesses within the EU. Presumably, that's I'm not sure whether it's by headcount or like total number of businesses. Certainly not by revenue, but yeah, I think every business basically should have some sort of generative AI angle, regardless of its size. So there were there were several sort of perceived challenges here. So one was the infrastructure thing I mentioned. One was just going about process re-engineering. But the third one was the AI skills gaps. They spend a lot of time talking about, well, how do you make sure that people have the right skills? And so the two things that they said everyone needs to have. So basic AI literacy skills is first of all just how do you go about using some of these AI tools? But also, do you understand what the implications of using AI are? So basically, what is possible with AI, what is not possible with AI, what should you do with it? Like, what are some sensible use cases? And the other thing on this is that digital skills, including AI skills, and that recognizes basic skills. So this is like a legal term which puts them alongside reading, mathematics, and science. So these are things that basically they think everyone should be taught from school age onwards. There's a big implications just for childhood educational curriculums right through to adult learning. All right. So, first of all, Martin, do you think this all sounds like a sensible thing, making AI skills, putting them on the same level as like reading, maths, and science?
Yeah. Well, let me first say, because you definitely triggered me with your opening sentence around like inspiring policymakers to write policies or something along those lines. Like I first of all, I don't think that we should inspire policymakers to write AI rules. Uh, for those who watched our talk at the start of the year around our predictions and the UAI Act, know that I'm not a super big fan of all of this. So this whole push towards like regulation, writing policies around this is like it feels a little it feels small. It feels very European. It feels very like okay, we what we're good at is like we're good at writing rules and making policies and doing laws. It reminds me a little bit of that, like that saying, like, okay, it's like if you want to get started, like you need to quit talking and like begin doing. I think there's lots of talking, lots of writing, very little doing. Like, am I a fan of all this? We're gonna let policymakers write good policies about AI? Like, not really. Do I agree with what's been said on like, okay, yes, we AI probably like AI skills is probably gonna be like a basic skill like reading and math and science. Like yes, but does that like I think that can like if you let the people free, if you let the citizens of the EU like go out themselves, I think I tend to believe that they'll figure this out themselves and like find their own path and then go at their own pace, and they'll be supported from the private markets or will be pushed from the private markets like through their jobs um to do this. Like maybe a very quick like data point on that. Probably I would take the bet that for the past 3 years, if you would aggregate the data, that the biggest users of ChatGPT were students. Um, so if you think about like, okay, students are already adopting this skill. Like they don't need a policy for that. Like they're already like they're ahead of the people that write the policy. I would guess. Um, so so this need for like writing all rules about it. No, I think the market is fixing it themselves. Like our children are taking the necessary steps to do this. Um, like, is it a common sense recommendation? Like, yes. Does it need to have everything around it? Like, I don't think so. I think you like let the people do what they seem best, and it seems that if you let them do that, then well, with students as an example, like that's already happening.
Okay, yeah. I want to argue with you on
Sure.
this. Yeah, I agree that the market is going to solve many problems in a commercial sense, but I also do think it's important for policymakers to have that sort of AI literacy themselves, so having an understanding of like what the point of generative AI is, in order that if they do write policies, they're not going to do something stupid. I also think that in non-commercial cases, it's also like very useful to have some policy there. So, for
Well,
example, if you're designing a school curriculum, you want to know like what good guidance is.
Well, the best way to avoid doing something stupid is not doing it. So or not doing anything. Like yes, should like schools think about like, okay, how to incorporate like AI in their curriculum and like make it part of a basic skill, like 100%. But I think that's like, I think my example of private market was not so like uh was not that well chosen, because I think I equally think that like if you have a motivated educator, teacher, that they will bring this as well. I'm actually fairly sure that in many classrooms today within Europe, without any policies, they're handling they're playing with AI in a very creative way, and thinking about like, okay, how can we use this? Yeah, maybe I'm a bit too much Ron Swanson from Life Parks and
But,
Recreation on this
uh,
on this topic.
yeah,
I don't like rules.
yeah, I think it's just, different levels of comfort with the bureaucratic engine, with
Yes.
a, okay, alright, so yeah, there's different ways of making it work. Alright, let's move on to the next story. You had something about, an AI advert.
Yeah, I don't really follow basketball, but like the NBA finals took place, and there was actually an ad that was fully created by AI. And so that was not the first one, because like Coca-Cola like did it in the past, and again like we referenced that in our start of the year podcast episode. But the crazy thing about this ad, it was by the way an ad of Kalshi, which is as far as I understand like a predictive betting kind of company. But the crazy thing about this ad was that the creator, and it was a single creator, so one person like wrote a blog post describing his workflow. And that's what's crazy, because again, so this is an ad that goes in prime time during the NBA finals. And he basically built it with Google Gemini, I think VO3. He used like a little script, 10 lines, and then edited the clips like in some standard video editing software. And it was done. So it took him 2 days to generate 30 seconds of content. And if you look at the cost estimate, like if you would exclude like his time, it was $600 to generate the content. So I'm probably sure like our listeners have heard about the crazy amounts that are paid for advertising during these top spots at the Super Bowl, at the NBA finals, and you look at these ads and they just look expensive. Um, if you look at this ad, it actually looks really good. And if you then realize, like, hey, this is created in 2 days by a single person with a technology that's maybe 2.5 years like old, between parentheses, mainstream, that's actually pretty like amazing. So yeah, like you didn't need to pay a writer, you didn't need like any camera persons, like no actors needed. So yeah, pretty like pretty fascinating. Yeah, Rich, I don't know, have you seen the ad?
I have seen the ad, and yeah, I didn't get all the cultural references because, again, I'm not a basketball fan from Florida, so it was very odd. Um, I, I like the ad though. It was fun. There were some interesting things that I think were caused by technological limitation. So, for example, there's it's lots of very, very short sections with quick camera cuts. So it's doing 1 or 2 seconds, and this is just because AI can't retain consistency for very long. It's quirky, and I think that's the only thing you can really get away with at the moment because, like, perfect realism of, like, movements and things like that is not really possible. So, having stuff that is weird and fast cutting is kind of the only tone you can go for at the moment.
That's a nice explanation. Like I was actually like, my take was like, oh shit, I'm getting old. Because like this is way too flashy and switches like way too quickly. But I like your take more,
Yeah,
which is
so
like, yeah. By the way, it probably makes sense like what you're saying. Like you clearly see that they need to like switch between different scenes very quickly, and it's most likely. Now, I was deliberately paying attention to it like during the first time that I saw the ad, and I couldn't spot like any obvious like glitches. Like I couldn't see like six fingers, or like somebody with three legs or something like that. So um at least for me, like maybe if I look at it like a fifth or a sixth time, like I start looking at the glitches, but I don't think that many people look at it like six times in a row. Um so I I I did that. It's like, okay, like in the first run, I didn't see that much wrong with it. Besides, like, the gate was very snappy.
Yeah, I was just that's the other thing is, like, if you keep things, moving quickly, then it distracts people from the fact that, like, maybe the lighting or the shadows isn't quite right in the background, or there's, like, an inconsistency with, like, I don't know, where some background objects are placed. So, yeah, keeping things moving quickly seems to be the secret for things. But I agree, like,
Well,
a lot of the artifacts are disappearing pretty quickly.
it,
It is getting much more realistic, very fast.
yeah,
I'm intrigued to see what happens, how this affects, like, creative industries, though, because I mean, you mentioned here it was done by one person, so you don't need a cameraman, you don't need actors, you don't need script writers. We had 2 Hollywood strikes, was it last year? I can't remember. Yeah, last year. So, the Screen Actors strike and then the Actors Guild striking, uh, exactly because of this. And now, okay, everything that these people striking predicted is sort of coming to pass. Um, Real content going out of prime time is being done by AI with no other people needed beyond one person and a prompt. So how do you think this plays out, in the real world?
I think in phases, and I think the phases are going to follow uh the length of the content. So going back to the clips point, like, okay, it's deliberate, like little clips pasted together, because like creating a 30-second or a minute ad that's like all at the same scene is probably like too hard, or too glitch prone, or anything like that. So I think what we'll see is like, okay, so now we saw like a little ad. Maybe the next thing we see like a more consistent ad. Then we're going to see like a 10-minute stand-up show by an AI. And then we might see like a 20-minute sitcom existing out of 5 episodes. And then like the next thing is maybe like a 70-minute children movie. And then like, okay, we're at the 2 hour like trailer. So I I think getting from that like 15-second clip to like the 1 hour and 30 minutes uh movie, I think that's actually like still a long way to go in art. And I don't think it's because of the creative part. I think people figure out like how to write the prompts, how to work with the camera perspectives. I think it's really going to. I think there it's really going to be about the technology, without having like any insight in this. Like, it's just we've seen massive improvement, but like from a length perspective, it's not that we're still watching 15 seconds, and the 15 seconds that look a lot better, but they're not like a minute or 2 minutes long.
Yeah, so, um I've seen a few sort of, videos, so the Door Brothers do quite funny satirical videos, and they're kind of a couple of minutes long, and that's like it's amazing, but that's the most I wanna concentrate on AI generated content at the moment. And part of me wonders, like, at the moment, it's very novel,
Mhm.
but is that kind of quirky tone and all the fast cuts, is that gonna get tedious quickly, do you think? Or are we gonna get past that and have, like, content that you can concentrate on for a bit longer?
Well, I think we're gonna need to get past that, because I think this is a particular type of content and style that's not gonna be like well suited for everyone. So if you want to make this like a really imagine like your Netflix is full of like videos like this ads, like I wouldn't have a Netflix subscription. It's too much, too fast, too loud. My guess is like they will need to fix the setting. Now I'm trying to think like what are good examples. Like maybe, well, if you look at when Toy Story first came out versus like where we are today in 3D and computer generated movies, like it's also like a very big difference, and that happened what is it in the last 20 years or something like that, 20 25 years. So like, well, my guess is we'll get there. But I do think there's still quite some hurdles um, to do like this. And there's a story by Seinfeld who's like, okay, talking about like how do you become a good like stand-up comedian, and it's like, okay, doing a 5 minute bit, like that's how you start. Like doing like 20 minutes, like is already difficult. Doing like a 1 hour, like is extremely difficult, and like an hour and 20 minutes, like that's insane. And it's like that's how you separate like the average stand up from the top stand up. I think it's gonna when I talk about the time frames, like that's a little bit the metaphor I have in in my mind. Like, yes, you can create a 30-second clip. Like it's hard but doable, and it's getting more and more accessible. But now, well, we're going to the 10 minutes and 20 minutes, and like when will we be at that 1 hour 20? And what will it take?
Absolutely. So maybe all these the screenwriters guild, the actors guild, they've got a bit more time to figure things out before it starts going into like, okay, this is mainstream TV stuff.
Yeah, on the screenwriting, like I think there's still a pretty good like somebody needs to write the prompts. So uh, they're probably good, I would guess.
That's yeah, true enough. Um, okay, so actually, before we move on, do you have a sense of how much this cost? Like, how much did
I
it?
have no idea actually. To be honest, well, we got the benchmark. Yeah, like as I said, like it's $600 to generate that video, excluding like the cost of the person. But like on the I don't I have no idea on like the token cost like specifically. Like
Okay,
allegedly this one cost $600.
all right, $600 of clip. So this is like for an individual, it's something you got to think about a bit, but for a business, that's just nothing.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. All right. Cool. So last story, quick one 'cause we've been talking for a while. I want to talk about the first benchmark for deep research tools. So these deep research tools are around. You can ask more complicated questions of generative AI. They'll go away and think for 10 minutes and then come back with a report for you. This comes out of research from the University of Science and Technology of China. And they tested it's tools from OpenAI, tools from Anthropic, Google, XAI, and Perplexity. And so we have a few winners. They split it into two categories actually. So the deep research agents are things that are specifically advertised at being able to use tools and are for deep research. So the wins in this category is Gemini 2.5 Pro, the deep research version of that, and then second place was the OpenAI deep research tool. So those are the best ones if you want to try out different deep research tools. The second category, it was just standard issue LLMs with search tool capabilities. So in this case, the winner was Claude 3.7 Sonnet, and second place was Perplexity Sonar Reasoning. So most of them had a winner. XAI was the only one which didn't have a winner in either category. But it seems like in general, the tools that are specifically marketed as deep research tools do better at deep research, which is a good thing. Um, yeah, the Irish are doing something rather than just a bit of branding. On the benchmark, the interesting thing was that they took a load of like real world prompts, and then they had an LLM to judge whether or not these agents were working correctly. And to begin with, the agents were being too nice, and they were giving everything a high score, which is stupid because you want to be discriminatory about like what's good and what's bad. So in the end, they had to get humans who were experts to write reports, and then they got the LLMs to compare it to the human report. So there's some human benchmarking involved in this. LLMs can't be trusted sort of by themselves at the moment. It also says that whatever the tool is, they're all still really bad at generating citations, or at least accurate citations where the content of whatever they're linking to actually says what they claim it does. So I think it's a known problem, something to watch out for when you're making use of these tools. Now, Martin, I don't know, have you used any of the deep research tools? Have you found they work or not?
So I used them a little bit. Like it's definitely like in the in my AI workflow, it's probably the one that I use the least. And I'm not often having that type of use case. But like let me give you an example when I did use it. Like okay, I use it. I needed to get some information out of like quarterly earnings reports from organizations, and actually did a pretty good job there. And what I noticed was like compared to when I used it in other instances is that because I had like bad experiences with it also, and it was because the prompt that I provided was not specific enough. The it's more anecdotal. It's my own experiences. Like, okay, so what I've learned was that if I give it like research me on this earnings report for this particular company, and I want to have this type of information and look back in the last like 24 months, like it gave me actually really good insights. When I would say give me everything of the S&P 500 and all the earnings and blah blah blah. Like it went too broad. Like I got like some funky behavior. Maybe it's me not writing the right prompts. Maybe it's something on the tool, but it's a little bit off-putting when you go through that experience. So I actually haven't talked to anyone, and this is on me. Like it would actually be good to talk to a couple people who use deep research tools like on a daily basis and understand how are they using it, what are they doing, um because I have a good feel of like, okay, I use ChatGPT, I use Gemini models on a daily basis, but I don't use a deep research. Like, okay, who is the equivalent of me who uses deep research the entire time? And yeah, see like, okay, what they think, what they do. So yeah.
Yeah, all right. We have to get Adele back then. I think he's a big fan of the deep research tools.
Ah,
But yeah,
fair. Yes.
I agree that I find the workflow incredibly frustrating because um, um, the models run for a few minutes, so you have to get the prompt right up front. And you're right that if you are more specific about what you want, it dramatically increases the chance of you getting things right. But that means that you've then got to do a lot of work up front in thinking, well, what do I actually want? And like, which sites should this thing be looking at in order to pull the information from? What do I actually want out of it? And you have to do so much prep up front to get it right that you you do half the research yourself. So yeah, in order to get good results, you've really got to be good at that kind of prompt engineering, and you've got to just take the time to think about what you want the answer to be.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, so it's the technology's kind of coming together again. It's like it's the process stuff that it's a little bit frustrating to use at the moment. But yeah, if any of your listeners have been making use of these deep research tools and you found success or you found some challenges, then please do hit us up on social media. Let us know what you found. All right, wonderful. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, Martin. We have talked for way too long, so let us wrap up here. Have you enjoyed the experience of hosting DataFrame?
Uh, this was nice. Like, it's amazing that you get paid for this. I would do this for free.
Okay, certainly not taking a salary cut to free.
Okay. No, it was really, really fun. And thanks for having me, Richie.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.